everyone, welcome to Zon Canada. I'm your host, Jesse Betteridge. So as you probably noticed, the last 2 or 3 weeks have been a never...
You're not going to introduce anybody?
I'm going to introduce you guys, just give me a second. So as you've probably noticed, the last 2 or 3 weeks have been an unending sewage leak of bad news for just about everyone in every way. I kind of intentionally avoided that in the previous episode where we kept things kind of light and fluffy, but we're going to go head first into all that bullshit this week. So joining us is nerdcore rapper Ultra Klystron and, again, all but co-host of this show, Karl Olson.
Hey, what's up?
And another frequent contributor, storyboarder from LA, it's Corey Barnes.
How's it going?
Yeah, so, I mean, let's just get right into it. One of the big things that happened just in the last couple of weeks is the news that HMV Canada, which has been pretty much the most prominent retailer that carries home video in general, but most notably anime home video releases in Canada, is shutting down. They officially went into receivership about 2 weeks ago, and all stores are scheduled to be closed by April 30th. I gotta say, even though, it's been a popular opinion that the writing's been on the wall for, physical media or home media for a number of years, there's still a lot of people who rely on it, or there's still a lot of people who buy it, a lot of people who rely on it to some degree, and frankly, I am a little surprised that this happened.
I think they're kind of being eaten away by too many angles here. Amazon isn't total garbage anymore up here. It's still not great, but they are putting some effort into it. You still have a lot of specialty shops in any given town of size. And that's kind of where the HMVs are left. It's not like there are HMVs in smaller places. And even smaller places are getting specialty shops. Like the last time I was in Kelowna, which is, for the listeners out there who are not familiar, it's a bit of a smaller town in BC. There was a specialty anime shop carrying, I think, legitimate merchandise in the mall there in Kelowna. But nonetheless, like, these are all of these things that they were trying to do to keep themselves afloat are also being nibbled on by specialty shops. Even the general nerd culture stuff, like Funko Pops, are like everywhere now. Like, it's not, like kind of tchotchkes are in all sorts of different stores. And I can see where, if they were already kind of on the bubble, there's a bunch of people standing around them with pins at the moment.
Usually, yeah.
Doesn't mean it doesn't suck though. I mean, it is very annoying, because what used to be like, oh, I can be in this place and I know where this thing is. If you were to move towns in Canada now, it's all like, you can't just be like, oh, let's go to the FYE and pick up where you left off. It's like, no, that's done. Hopefully what you want is on Amazon or maybe at GameStop merch-wise, or you find the little local comic book shop or anime shop or both to get yourself back in the physical media loop. But it's weird. It's this weird thing where the chain has failed, where I think specialty shops have relatively thrived.
It's funny. I buy records a lot, and my mentality has actually been for a little bit that I feel like it was a weird feeling where I felt that buying a record at HMV would be better because I'd be supporting a company that's, having more trouble hanging in there, because a lot of those independent specialty retailers seem to be, for the most part, in better shape a lot of the time. Nonetheless, I'm still a little surprised that HMV is gone before, say, FYE in the States, because those two stores have sort of been in the same situation for a while.
They are soulmates.
I'm as surprised as you are that I can find any FYE store in malls, at least in big cities. Like, I mean, I live in LA, so they have them here. But I was just in Florida, and they're still around. They're still alive and kicking. You can get a box set of The Simpsons. You buy one and you get 2 free. But
Jesus.
Oh wow.
Yeah, other than that.
HMV was never that generous in terms of pricing. I mean, they were getting better.
Yeah, it's next to the bin full of Genion releases, and you can buy Slam Dunk on DVD, or or like
that classic Toronto dub.
Shibuya in Love, or yeah.
And I guess that so are they like just like hemorrhaging their DVD selection and replacing it with Funko Pops?
Well, Funko Pops seem to be replacing everything from food to like beauty products. I see those things everywhere. And you know what? Now we've got Mr. Potato Head wants in on that market. So now we've got Funko Pop style Mr. Potato Heads, where it's Deadpool, but it's Mr. Potato Head, and you'll see those start popping up as well.
Wait. Does this mean that we're gonna have Mrs. Potato Head Laura Palmer in a fucking plastic bag?
Oh my god.
Possibly.
If you don't know what Carl's referring to, Funko just recently unveiled their Twin Peaks Funko Pop figures, and one of them is Laura Palmer from Twin Peaks, but she is, killed.
It's dead Laura
recently.
Palmer.
Yeah, dead, recently raped Laura Palmer, wrapped in plastic, with the plastic just strategically covering her nudie bits. So, good job, Funko. I'm sure whoever designed that figure is very proud of themselves.
It's on somebody's CV.
Yeah.
Designed dead Laura Palmer Funko.
I hope they got paid a good rate.
Full exposure.
What's that email conversation like? We need you to design this dead Laura Palmer. What's your cost? Name your price. Even the designs.
Yeah,
and the mold.
It's interesting with FYE. You mentioned like the Geneon titles that have been like in a bargain bin situation. Since I would imagine that FYE stores still have like stock of anime going back as far as like 2001, 2002.
Try 1997.
Oh man,
I'm surprised that shit hasn't made it to a big loss. That they themselves didn't liquidate it out to other carriers. Though I guess maybe they're waiting for like. Go ahead.
They have like clearance bins full of like anime merchandise. Like you can get like a Black Butler tote bag, or like all the like they used to have like a big display in ours that was just all Attack on Titan, but that was like 2 years ago. Maybe they should consider bringing that back by spring. But a lot of that is now in the bins with all the other tchotchkes and anime.
Yeah, it's interesting. By comparison, when you look at HMV, I mean, you're going to find some old manga entertainment titles kicking around. Like, I think my local one had the big, huge, bulky, standalone complex box set that's still like $180 and has been sitting around for about a decade. But HMV actually traditionally hasn't always been a great place to get anime, though. Unlike FYE, which has just been inundated with stuff over the last 15
Since
years.
About 2004.
Yeah.
Them and Suncoast, although Suncoast did not live nearly as long as FYE did.
Yeah.
And all their stuff did make it to big loss.
Yeah, but I mean,
yes,
in that same amount of time, HMV has been like the only real substantial place to buy physical media. I mean, like obviously Future Shop and which is also dead now has always had something of a selection, but HMV was like the only major specialty place.
Because I mean, like by the time Best Buy got up here, they were already bailing out of it in the States. And certainly when they took over the Future Shop locations, they took over here. They weren't like, now we're going to add a bunch of DVDs that don't sell. Like barely carry games at Best Buy now.
Oh yeah, like
let alone like DVD or Blu-ray. It's kind of crazy, like how little selection they have up here versus even the States, which at least has the remnants of those sections.
Exactly. Best Buy is cut back in the States, but here it's just like been eliminated practically. I mean, you'll get new release titles, and that's basically it. They're not going to keep.
There's more floor space devoted for each carrier's cell phone.
But
and Funko Pops.
Funko Pops. But yeah, I mean, with HMV, they never, when it came to anime, they never really went out of their way to carry a good anime selection, except for at their like most their signature stores in like Vancouver and downtown Toronto. But I mean, throughout the 90s and 2000s, like it would have been laughable to compare them to Suncoast or FYE or the US Best Buy in terms of selection, because they were usually beholden to what was just being distributed directly in Canada, which back at that time wasn't very much.
Sucked.
I mean, I mean, we're going way back here, but keep in mind that during most of the early 2000s, you couldn't even find Funimation stuff in stores in Canada, because they just didn't have any distribution deal here at all. Bandai Entertainment titles were like completely absent from store shelves here for us for almost 3 years, and during that time, like HMV didn't even carry them. They were not going out of their way to fill that gap. And like ironically, it wasn't until 2011 when HMV was purchased by Hilco, which is a restructuring company from the UK, that actually started to change, because that's when they really sat down and thought about how do we make a physical media store continue to get by in this 2010s decade we're in now. And that's oops. But that's the point when they finally that's the point when they finally sat down and took notice of the fact that anime was one of the few sections of the home video market that was still growing, which I believe is still the case for the North American home video market. It's like HMV didn't even hone in on that or really care about that until they were in their restructuring period.
Though, at the same time, though, I wouldn't want to be a non-specialty retailer in that market, especially given today's news of Crunchyroll getting 1 million subscribers.
Well, I mean, good for them.
Yeah.
But I mean, like, right up until recently, like month by month, the anime selection at HMV was getting better. They were getting more stuff in at all their locations. They were going out of their way to bring in titles from companies that don't really distribute their stuff in Canada at all. They were getting Nozomi Entertainment titles. They were getting Discotek titles, and their Discotek selection grew substantially just in the last couple of months. And that's actually a big problem now, because stuff from Discotek, stuff from Nozomi Entertainment, companies that really need to get proper Canadian distribution in place, don't have them. You can't really get them without some kind of outrageous importation markup on them now. Like if you order a Discotek title through Amazon.ca, you're paying like an extra probably 15%, maybe more, on top of the regular price, just because Amazon.ca doesn't get it directly from the company. They have to import it from the American side, and they just tack an extra fee on top of it. And the other smaller distributors who are making up a larger and larger part of the anime market overall are not doing anything about that. They're not doing anything to fix that problem, and HMV provided a solution, especially for people who, in certain parts of Canada, shipping is not cheap. Even if you live in a remote community, you can't get free shipping from Amazon anymore either. It's going to be very pricey. So, and not to say that people who live in those areas would always have access to would have. In fact, I was surprised. I think there were just over 100 HMV locations left in the area. I thought there were a few more than that. But I mean, for those who did have access, it was kind of like a lifeline. So
I'm actually kind of surprised there was 100, frankly.
Really?
Yeah, I would have been like 2 in Vancouver, maybe 4 total in Alberta, a couple each in Calgary and Edmonton. Like I would have basically said for each city of merit, maybe 1 in Victoria, and that's a big maybe. You figure there's like if you put 1 or 2 in every major, every city above 500,000, that doesn't get you anywhere near 100. So I'm surprised they had as many as they did.
I thought they were getting by okay. I certainly thought they were going to outlive FYE. I thought we were going to win in that department, but I guess not.
I've been trying to look up how many FYE stores are left, and this is like 2009. They closed over 100 locations and 50 more in 2012. So it looks like the earliest I can find it's from 2012. It says they had like 350 stores left here.
I guess.
So what? 1 per million people in America.
Yeah, per capita.
Right.
That's much lower than there were HMV.
Yeah. Like especially these stores, especially like here in LA, like Amoeba Music is still doing very well. Like
that's the kind of thing that I would think would be the bigger threat to your FYEs is, in a place like LA, you've got Amoeba. In Seattle, there's various indie chains and stuff that are going to hurt your music side. All of these cities have great comic shops. All of these cities have great games shops. All of these cities have great anime shops, and these are all things that can eat at FYE from the edges. I'm going to be very curious to see if it follows a similar trend, especially because the flip side is HMV failed up here in spite of Amazon kind of limping along up here in Canada. And obviously in the States, it's a whole different ballgame where it's like, you have like prime same day delivery probably of a lot of anime titles in major cities in the US. Like that's going to be pretty bad when it's like, I can be a total NEET and still get my anime delivered to my door the same day. that could be an issue.
Yeah, we had like a anime store called Anime Jungle. I don't know if they're still around. I think we tried to find them, or maybe they've rebranded, but they're like in downtown LA. And there was another one just outside of downtown. But I remember because they had commercials on Adult Swim for a while to go pick up Kick Heart on Blu-ray there. The production, or was that Production IG? It was the kickstarted Masaki Yuasa thing.
Yeah. No, and like up here we've got like Sakura Media, and I actually don't know if Seattle has one per se right now, or I don't remember which ones they have because it's been so long. Yeah. Coast has things.
In Canada, are the independent stores going to be able to pick up the slack? I know we're probably very lucky that Sakura Media is still hanging in there here in Vancouver, but I mean they have. I was talking to the owner the other day about the HMV closure, and I asked him because they have massively cut back on their selection of home video. Yeah, they can still order in basically anything you want, and confirm that they still will continue to do that. He's not sure if they're going to expand the video section back to anything even close to what it once was. It's been a very tragic journey to see how the selection of that store has been changing. There used to be an entire wall of DVD and Blu-ray. So even to begin with, it wasn't what I would call an impressive selection, but it was good. It was very much an anime store that had lots of anime in stock. And then suddenly that shelf got cut in half, and the other half of the shelf got replaced with a bunch of Dakimakuras, because I guess they needed more room for those. And then the other shelf eventually has now been contracted into a very small little display. And even the Dakis are gone. That entire shelf is Funko Pops now, which has me a little worried.
God damn it!
It always comes back to Funko Pops.
You could probably see Funko Pops as the harbinger of death, perhaps.
So when the nuclear holocaust happens, all there will be left will be Twinkies, cockroaches, and Funko Pops.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the other side of it is when Funkos inevitably, have their moments over, and people are like, "The fuck did I collect all this plastic garbage?" Is this just going to collapse like every comic book shop, GameStop, and anime store? Like it's laughed at, like, oh, it's the Funko money dried up. We didn't even know what to sell anymore. We all went under.
So
yeah,
and I mean, optical media is not going anywhere either. Yeah, it's
it can also be there after the nuclear holocaust with the Funko Pops.
Yep. Funko Pops
what did this
away.
mean? Well, we have the informational disc that describes the honest, obviously true story of what had occurred. These guardians of the galaxy.
Hey, if they find optical discs in the far-flung post-apocalyptic future, which is probably closer than we think, maybe they could use that to backwards engineer like all of technology. Like, how do you play this thing? And they can discover like the laser and the player, and they figured, oh, well, we need something to display this, and bring back television, and then it'll.
We'll just cobble that shit together out of like things in junkyards.
Yeah.
Yep.
See, there are some things to look forward to in the future. That might be
fun.
How do
we want to get back? How do we want to get back on track?
So let's get back to what we were talking about. So if you run like an independent store that deals with comics or anime or music or records or anything like that, like this is probably like HMV's closure is probably a good opportunity, because a lot of those stores lose money. They're just hanging in there. But there is still a market for physical media, and now is the time to kind of seize that. Because the reality is not I think a natural assumption people are going to make is that everyone's just going to order stuff online, but that's not always, as I was getting at before, that's not always going to be a practical option for everyone. Because, of course, like in more remote communities, you have shipping issues that are going to come up. Yeah. And you can't...
Well, like I said, the selection here isn't 100, right?
Yeah.
The selection here isn't perfect online. And, Canada is weird with our $20 limit on what you can send through the mail versus the U.S. we have up to $800 duty free come through. So it does make it viable for the independent retailer to be in the physical space. Certainly better to pay those duties on a wholesale price than a retail price.
Yeah. And this also strengthens my ongoing argument that Right Stuff really needs to look into opening an actual depot here in Canada, which is going to be an enormous cost, but I think it'll absolutely pay off, especially if they've been getting increased business from Canada lately.
They could become like the giant company in Australia that owns all the animes.
Madman.
Yeah, they could become Canada's Madman.
Yeah.
I think Nelvana might have a bone to pick with that, though.
Well, you can take their Madbots and go home.
Yeah, and so there are all these obstacles with ordering things online, and for like guys like me and Karl, when we order, a lot of the times when we order anything online, we'll usually just have it sent to an address or friends in the U.S. and go down there.
Order on an American site,
yeah,
and then just get it in the U.S.
and pick it up ourselves. But I think it's definitely worth noting, and that we're used to doing that. That's okay for us. It's worth noting that many people don't have that option because they don't live close enough to the border. In fact, most of the people I regularly have on this show, like Ian and Randy and Aaron, they do not live near the border and they can't do that. So yeah. I can't tote that as a legitimate option. Also, there's the fact that it's the idea of having to do something like that is total bullshit. You shouldn't have to do that. It should be possible to get this stuff in Canada. There should be more support for accessing this material in Canada, and it seems that just losing a major physical media outlet, it really is a massive lifeline for a lot of people, most likely. Now, Walmart is probably going to be the biggest chain store that carries home video or anime specifically.
I don't know how many. By number of places, sure. I think by depth, maybe you would know better how London Drugs is doing, because yes, they aren't as big a chain, but they tend to be better about having physical media that isn't just like the top most popular Blu-rays and the top most popular records, right? Them getting Dragon Ball, Walmart getting Dragon Ball in is an obvious go, but it's like if they're going to try and get something a little more niche. London that wasn't at a specialty retailer, I'd try London Drugs first.
Yeah. London Drugs, which is like Western Canada only, I should point out. They have traditionally been pretty good with getting anime, and they still sometimes get more obscure titles in, but it's always very random. And I hope that they're looking at this HMV thing, looking at it as an opportunity to maybe expand their niche home video selection a little bit. Or
they'll just be like, what was working really well for HMV? Funko Pops.
Oh no!
Yeah,
please don't.
I think you got to name your podcast. It's Funko
Popcast.
Popcast.
There probably is a podcast like that where there's open Funko Pops and here's the Walking Dead Funko Pop. Wow, look at it. It looks just like the character.
Oh my god.
But with sad eyes.
I'm so tempted to check YouTube and see if people are doing unboxing videos for Funko Pops.
No, there are.
Of course no, that's a given. That's a given. I just want to see if there's like an hour of audio of people talking about fucking plastic figures. And especially Funko Pops, since they're all kind of a little samey by design.
Yeah, but I'm gonna miss HMV. In a way, at least for me here in Vancouver, HMV kind of really died when that big downtown location shut down. It's a Victoria's Secret now, which is like, whatever. I can't go browse through Criterion Collection DVDs there, but it really sucks. I hope that other stores kind of adapt to this change. We see some positive development for more independent stores, but it's really tough times. And it's definitely being made worse and going back to, getting stuff over the border or ordering stuff over the border or just dealing with the U.S. border in general, that is almost certainly going to get a lot harder for people in the coming, I was going to say months, but probably weeks. I should probably point out that, at the time that we're recording this, we're just like 2 weeks after the point when Trump introduced the travel ban on Muslim people from certain Muslim countries at the U.S. border, and where we currently stand right now, as of right now, and I should point this out because it will probably change by the time you hear this episode. The federal appeals court, Ninth Circuit, has declared it unconstitutional, and for now it is on hold. Obviously that journey isn't over yet. We don't really know how it's going to end. It could end very badly. I'm going to try not to speculate on that too much. But regardless of whether it happens, whether this travel ban goes into place or not, whether or not it's actually a formal policy that is put back into place, things are going to be getting over that border is going to be a lot harder, especially for people who are black or brown, who are going to face even more increased scrutiny than they already do, even if they're not from one of those countries, even if they don't have dual citizenship in one of those countries, even linked to one of those countries. But even for other people, even for just like white guys like me, there's already mutterings of things happening, like of social media searches or border guards searching people's phones, or possibly having to or people having to like surrender passwords at the border. And it's pretty frustrating and scary, I have to say. I think it's going to be a bad time. I don't know about you guys.
I'm lucky I live in a state that seems to mostly have its shit together.
Yeah. If you live in the state of California, I think you're probably okay. But,
yeah. I mean, there's a lot of work to be done, and no one should sit by and watch it happen.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I gotta write more letters and make more phone calls than I am already. and yeah, everyone, and donate.
Yeah, as soon as I have some money to spare, I'm gonna donate to the ACLU for sure.
Yeah.
Well, since Bandcamp was doing they're going to contribute their share of a recent Friday sales, I was like, well, I might as well just throw my hat in the ring and thing where basically they take like 15 to 20% of the artist's sales. And they said, well, everything this last Friday would go into would be donated. And so I was like, well, I might as well just donate my share of it as well to the ACLU, because it seemed like a good cause, and that, like I said, every little bit counts.
I mean, just from a Canadian anime fan perspective, I think there's a lot of uncertainty to face. Because I can just, like, from the perspective of people like me, I really want to go to Sakuracon. I go to Sakuracon most years. Now, I'm not so sure. Like, I haven't bought my ticket yet. I'm still hoping to go. I'm still hoping to do some panels there. But I'm not going to buy my ticket until the absolute last minute. And even then, like, what could happen within the 3 weeks between the time I buy my ticket and the time that the event happens? Like, well, it's only been 3 weeks so far since the Trump presidency started. Like, it's unimaginable what could happen in that amount of time. They could institute some kind of policy that, I have to surrender my phone or give up my passwords, or there's going to be just increased scrutiny that, could affect me. And then for, people who are not white like me, people who are brown or have heritage in one of those countries that are being targeted, I mean, you'd probably have to be crazy to even try and go down to go to a U.S. Anime Con right now, and that really sucks. I mean, going to, I think this might be increasingly less the case for younger people. If, a lot of the younger people don't go to the States for cons anymore. They usually just stick around here because it's too expensive. But being able to go to U.S. Anime Cons
also
is
they also have them here, like, in a way that they used to not. So that
I mean, we have Anime Revolution in Vancouver now, which is more substantial than any con we had before. But it still feels kind of cut off from what you get in the States, where you get all the richer industry representation and more guests, just higher attendance overall. It's absolutely more of a substantial thing in the States, and it just being cut off from that is kind of devastating for participants in fandom, I feel. I don't know, Karl, you're actually from the States, so this is probably a big issue for you as well.
I don't know. I got 2 passports, so I'm not too worried yet. But it is weird. Like, it's like that was a thing that was very boring and stable through 2 prior administrations, because I've been coming up here since 2006 regularly, and it was what it was. nothing terribly surprising. And things aren't normal, and things aren't stable, and that's just simply, it seems like an oversimplification, but that's a huge difference, right?
Yeah.
When things go from being like, this has a very consistent set of rules, things happen through Congress, where there's a lot of, like, you can see things coming. Like, there was that big change where it was like previously you didn't need a passport to go over the border, and then you needed one.
Yeah.
Or you needed an enhanced ID. And that was a big change, but it was one that was like years in the making. Like, it took forever for that to actually settle in and that be a thing. And this is something where it's like, depending on what Steve Bannon manages to get, 45 to sign.
45.
It's a bit of a different, it's a very different. I'm going to stick with it.
Yeah.
It's a very different kind of move. And I mean, that's some of what people wanted out of this, but it's like, but that's not necessarily what you want when you have, there's lots of people who work jobs on, live on one side of the border, work a job on the other side of it. Like, that's not unusual. I mean, like, the most blatant example of this obviously being Windsor and Detroit, where you literally have, a scenario that's similar to like San Diego and Tijuana, where the two cities are just sitting on either side of a border, but they're two massive cities there. But I mean, even here you have people who are in Blaine and they come up here and vice versa. This is very weird because like normalcy is expected. And a lot of those people have, what you call it, nexus passes, but we've seen nexus passes revoked for people who, had ties to these countries, and that's very weird and very different.
Yeah.
And it's an apple cart that should not be upset lightly. And so you kind of just got to wait and see. And it means that from, fandom's obviously the least of any of these problems, but it just means that it's another thing to consider. It's like, do you spend a bunch of money to book, say like, I'm going to travel to something in 6 months from now. It's like, are you though?
Yeah. I booked a hotel room for Washington DC because I really wanted to go to Otakon this year. But I canceled that. That's not happening. And I was going to invite you guys, but sorry, that's not happening now. The situation is just so confusing right now, and if you've been I was going to say if you've been following it, of course you've been following it. How could you not be following it right now?
Try not to follow it. It follows you.
Yeah. I remember when I enjoyed Twitter. Now, I just got a new phone, actually, and I have deliberately not installed Twitter on it yet, because it's like having an anxiety button on your phone, all this news just pouring out at you constantly. You can't escape it. And, a lot of things are getting, like, really confusing. Because you're hearing lots of reports. There was that report just from the other day of the Moroccan woman who in Quebec who tried to cross the border and was turned away because of some videos that they found on her phone. It was completely unjustified. There are reports of people going down who are being asked like about their political affiliations or their opinions on Trump. And it's feeling really scary. It is worth pointing out that a lot of this bullshit we're seeing at the border now has already been happening for years. Border guards have been doing this shit, and it's possible that we're just hearing more reported cases of it because of sensationalism surrounding all the problems that are happening and just the general craziness and panic that's going on. It is worth pointing out, and this is an ongoing problem, that border guards with only a few limitations can pretty much do whatever the fuck they want. And there's very little that we can do about it. I mean, I don't think it's necessarily a trend right now that people are being asked, what is your opinion of Trump, or about your social media activities. But I mean, the reality is they actually can do that now if they want to. I mean, I guess the situation that's kind of being speculated on right now is that these things are going to be instituted as policy. And it's like, I want to say that's unlikely, because the idea of every single person going over the border being screened for social media stuff is kind of ridiculous and unthinkable, because it's not practical in any way. But you can't really say anything for sure anymore. I think that being able to go to the U.S. for a lot of people is an important part of fandom, and it really sucks that this is being trampled on, like, from that perspective, that just like that simple pleasure is being trampled on by these like horrible violations of people's rights. It's makes me so angry.
Yeah.
On the flip side, I'm appreciating the comparative quaintness of Canadian politics so much more right now. Like, Kevin O'Leary, whatever. All right, you guys have anything more to say about that?
Nah, not really.
No.
Nah.
All right, well let's move on from that. Karl, I know that you've been since you moved recently, you've been dabbling around with digital over-the-air broadcasting and had a few thoughts you've been itching to share on that.
Yeah, no, it's been great, and yet just ever so slightly disappointing at the same time, because where I am, I can pull pretty much all the stations I get up here in Canada digitally, plus a couple of other states. Well, yeah, no, yes, all of the stations again, everything in Vancouver. And I can also pull a couple of stations from the States, because there's a couple of things being broadcast from Mount Baker near Bellingham. And it's kind of annoying that two stations there that have digital substations, or excuse me, three, provide as many channels as all of the Canadian channels, because the Canadian channels don't have any digital substations. And it seems like, considering how much the CTRC wants to have more Canadian content, digital substations encouraging that kind of stuff, that kind of programming up here, to be a really quick win towards getting greater diversity of content up here. Because I mean, even if it was just reruns of older Canadian stuff, or because I mean, a lot of the digital channels that I get are just like programmed with like reruns of old stuff from the States, but that's still an increase in diversity. You got, I get MeTV with all of the old sitcoms. I get movies with all the old black and white movies. I get Heroes and Icons with all that Star Trek and 90s syndicated schlock, which is actually sometimes just great fun to turn on. The PBS station that I get gives me a PBS NHK World in 720p, which is awesome. Pretty much leave that on all the time, because it's actually kind of better at doing a PBS type educational stuff than the PBS is.
When I looked up the fact that that PBS retransmitter had NHK World as a sub-channel, I was excited about it, and then you made fun of me by pointing out that you could just watch that streaming online any day. But now that you've set up an antenna in your place and actually started using it, it's all you watch. It's all you watch. But that's the thing, that a lot of people who, are cord cutters don't really try using an antenna. People don't really seem to be aware of it a lot of the time. A lot of people don't understand the benefits of it. But when you actually,
I think it's becoming more common. Like, now that there's like a cord cutter culture.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, especially when you take a look at like related sales on Amazon, it's like people buy some kind of flat antenna, some sort of Android box that runs Kodi, or a Fire Stick or something like that. They buy some sort of media streaming stick, and then they will get like, maybe like if they're really being fancy about it, you'll see like the third thing being like HD home run box to hook the antenna into instead of directly into the TV, so they get DVR functionality.
And a lot of people have forgotten that free TV is free. Or they've had cable their whole lives, and so they never dealt with an antenna. It's just like every year the Super Bowl comes on, I always see the same articles that say, how to stream the Super Bowl to your computer for free. And I'm always thinking, just get an antenna. Then you don't have to deal with all these workarounds to do the same thing that you do if you just get your digital antenna and plug it into your TV.
Yeah.
Here in LA,
it's like
sub-channels.
Go ahead.
Man, the amount of sub-channels here is insane. And there's a lot of like we also get movies and Heroes and Icons. Do you get Buzzer?
No. Is that like all game shows?
That's all game shows, and spelled B-U-Z-Z-R.
See, like, like, that's what I'm saying, is like, it's like, it's I mean, especially when I think about somebody like CBC. CBC has, 40, 50 years of back content. They could have a channel that's just all sub-channel. It's all classic stuff in standard def. They could put CBC News World over the air, and have a 24-hour news channel. They
apparently at one point they did have CBC News Network over the air, but have since taken it back because they rely on the cable, the money they make by having it in cable packages. Also, you can stream CBC News Network, but it's but you have to pay about $6 or $7 a month for it, which
That's nuts.
is nuts, especially considering it has advertising, which Canadian Heritage really needs to move forward with trying to find a way to make fun CBC so that it can operate without ads. I think that's really important across all their services.
I think it's going to be tough about getting that moving forward in Canada is we have such a media, we have like 5 media companies if that, and no lane for like a lot of the stuff that I see in the States is like these new little companies that all they do is digital subchannels. And I mean, like even Funimation was at one point a digital subchannel in a lot of markets. So I mean, this is something that, I remember because I remember where they launched. I remember being at Anime Expo and they had televisions in the building there in Anaheim with that were set up with digital TV, and they were pulling over the air on the digital television Funimation, and it's like it's the kind of thing where it's like
Channel 18.
Yeah. Well, no, the other thing is that and the other thing I didn't realize is that you can multiplex like 9 channels if you want to go SD on digital subchannels. There's a channel in San Francisco that does that, and it's like, okay, that's maybe a bit much, maybe hard to fill in the Canadian market, but yeah, there's no reason we have this bandwidth is in here effectively and it's unused, and have a greater diversity of this stuff. And I think it's also the kind of thing that's like, if you want to, I'm not sure if you can stand cord cutting, but if you want to have people watch linear television, especially in Canada, where for the most part, most of the population is in larger cities near transmitters.
Yeah, it's worth pointing out that it's worth pointing out if you don't live near a large city, your options for over-the-air are limited. But I don't think that invalidates.
Limited.
Yeah, I don't think that invalidates it.
And I think if anything, because so much of Canada's populace is in its handful of major cities, digital subchannels have as much, if not more, impact in keeping people watching linear television. Like, I think if you want to keep that around at all, I don't think it's going to be because you made your cable thing available over. Like, I think TV over internet is part of that, but I think the other part of that is going to be just make more content available OTA, and then people, when they want to watch something streaming, they're going to just do that on demand. They're not going to tune into a stream that's linear.
Yeah.
But I think when people
Esquire network just moved to digital.
Mm-hmm. But I think for the people who are going to when you're just flipping through stuff, if that's free and ad supported, or in the case of things like CBC, or for now PBS, so it was always very donation supported as well. Don't worry, most PBSs make most of their money from tote bags. It's cool.
Barely any of the revenue comes from the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. It's like less than 3%. It's really tiny.
Yeah. Well, the other side of that is that and I've noticed this, and I think I've mentioned this before. Like it's really interesting to see like the times of day where the PBS affiliate that I get over the air now. There are times a day where they're just running like somebody's self-help video, and then they're running like pledges related to that, and you're like, this is basically an infomercial, but we can let it slide. It's basically when you're running the whole thing for somebody's like how to live a better life, for eat better type lecture video. I'm like, that's basic, and then you're immediately like, here's the DVD. I'm like, sure.
The thing with just finding the relevance of broadcast, or I think a lot of people are disconnected with how it's supposed to work and what it's supposed to be. And I think that this is the big thing about people not being aware of the whole over-the-air antenna thing when they more than likely have access to it, is that when you actually get the antenna, set it up to your TV and try it like hands-on, it's an eye-opening experience. It's kind of a I mean, you kind of get a moment that where it sinks in, like, oh, this is how TV is supposed to work. This is the actual potential of this technology. And then of course you look at Canadian stations, and you had these potential to have a whole bunch of subchannels, and it's just not being utilized, and because there's no incentive for it. And if more people tried it, if more people were aware of the fact that they can get a substantial amount of content for free with an over-the-air antenna, then there may be more visible demand, and then like broadcasters like CBC could probably have more subchannels on their their transmitters. Like here in Vancouver, at least.
It's a real chicken and the egg problem in a sense, because on the one hand, if you put more content out there, it will get more eyeballs and you can sell stuff on that. But it's hard to put that content out there without having the money first and be already selling something. And there is a bit of inbuilt risk that you're going to have to take on. But I think, to me, the fact that you can look at the U.S. and you can look at any market, I mean, certainly as you get to bigger markets like L.A. and New York City and such, yes, tons and tons and tons of digital subchannels. But even in things that are more comparably sized Canadian cities like, Seattle and Vancouver, very comparably sized cities, but there's so much more over-the-air content in Seattle, in spite of, in a sense, a less favorable geography. Like Vancouver being built on a floodplain is flat. You can throw these signals out nice and wide and easy, and so that you could cover your whole panurbation with one transmitter, really. Whereas Seattle, because of it's stretching kind of where it does in the mountains and stuff, you end up with needing extra transmitters down south towards Tacoma and Olympia, extra transmitters up north towards Bellingham and Everett, and then ones in Seattle and the central area as well. And even then, it's so hilly through most of it that you can be in a shadow. My parents, for example, are in a shadow and they can't pull a lot of stations in spite of the fact they should be close enough to where they are. It's kind of crazy that it isn't more popular here, and I do think that is in a large part because we're not taking full advantage, or our media companies are not taking full advantage of the bandwidth being allotted to them. And it'd be really cool if they were kind of poked in the ribs to do that, because the other side of it is, on one hand, yes, it sucks that there is not necessarily opportunity for these independent things as easily or as rapidly, perhaps, to get a transmitter set up and then sell multiple subchannels on that. But all of these companies that do own, CTV is owned by, I guess, Bell or who, like each of these major things have their corporate parents, which have multiple channels that could, don't even run them all the time, or only run them in standard def so you're not cutting into your HD packages, and run them in like shitty standard def. You can make it kind of like the shareware version of this stuff. You make it the little taste. But if you do that, at least people are watching those ads, so you can immediately say, I've got X more viewers on these ads, I can charge X more for them. That may or may, I don't think I think if you did it right, you're not gonna so much lose people saying, I can now drop cable because I can get much over the air. It's that the people who'd be like, fuck watching much anymore because I don't want to buy cable will be like, well, if I can watch it though. That's
some of our digital subchannels. I think we have too many.
That's such an American problem, Corey.
I know. Well, it's more of a Los Angeles problem. But I have this list in front of me, and it just keeps going. Like, all Armenian music videos. We have a lot of Armenian, Korean, and Chinese.
You guys, I know you guys have a couple of stations that specialize in like Korean and Japanese dramas.
Yes.
I'm amazed that we don't have anything like that in Vancouver. Like that seems like a really obvious thing for someone to try.
We have like one international-ish station, right?
Yeah, we have Omni, and that runs some of that stuff. But I don't think you can even get Omni over the air, or at least it's extremely limited if you can.
I'm able to get Omni over the air, but what I realize is that given just the diversity we have in the Lower Mainland, we could have a station that was just running Chinese language content. And actually, you could probably have two, because you get one focusing on mainland content, one focusing on Hong Kong and Taiwan content. We could have a station that's just running content for people from the Iranian diaspora who came here. We have people who are just running for a Sikh, Pakistani, Indian audience. Like, we have lots of like very specific, and still in neighborhoods. We have neighborhoods and stuff as well. Like, we have lots of distinct, still culturally tight, like, it's still a salad bowl, not a melting pot. So you'd have the audience for it, I think, here for subchannels that were, as specialized as just running music videos for a given subculture. I think there would be eyeballs on it, and it would be on in restaurants and such.
Yeah, like a channel here called Justice Network. I don't know what it is, but it's on the Univision affiliate. So I'm assuming it's Spanish.
Justice Network. It sounds badass.
Well, it's right next to Bounce TV.
What's Bounce TV?
I have no idea. Bouncing titties all day.
See, I wish there was enough over-the-air content here that was like, I don't even know what this is.
Yeah.
Instead, I know exactly like what channels I have, and I know that it's kind of annoying that like the thing that I leave the TV on the most is a Japanese channel carried by an American broadcaster that happens to be receivable from me in Canada.
Yeah, like our PBS station also carries NHK World.
Cool.
It strikes me that NHK World would be like an obvious, like you could put NHK World, France 24, and probably like a couple of other like, global outreach versions of national channels as CBC subchannels if CBC didn't want to put any of their other linear channels on there. Like that alone, if CBC said, you know what, we're going to carry that stuff because we think it's valuable to the Canadian public to have a global perspective, that alone would be fantastic use of digital subchannel space.
Yeah, when I lived in Atlanta, our one of our local stations actually they made a deal with Clear Channel to actually carry their FM radio and then one AM radio on their digital subchannels. So all you got was
it'd be perfectly valuable, perfectly
black
reasonable to have there.
Yeah.
See, I think despite the underutilization of over-the-air broadcasting, I think it's as long as it's there, as long as it's not eliminated, which unfortunately is a threat a lot of the time, I do think that it's going to outlive cable and satellite. Broadcast is really going to...
I can see satellite. I think you might be right about cable. Cable is a specific
subscription
box as opposed
television.
to like IP.
Yeah.
Subscription television.
Yeah. Like specialty television. I think that we're going to see it really kind of implode. I mean, it already is imploding to a certain degree. I don't know.
I think at the very least it's all going to become IPTV services, whether they like it or not. They're not going to be happy about that, but it's going to be like that's going to be the only way they can sell it at all. Even if they can abuse net neutrality and a bunch of other shit, like even if they really try and force lock in, a lot of people will just be like, I can't afford your ripoff. I will pirate. I will do anything but get locked into this. I mean, I think nothing could probably drive people, ironically, nothing could drive people to over the air more than trying to force people into like cable and satellite by virtue of strangling IPTV. I think a lot of people will take a look at going back to cable and be like, I haven't gotten a raise in 30 years. Fuck you.
I love it.
That's how people are going to be. Like, because like, I mean, as it stands, my parents are thinking about cutting the cord not because of cost, but just because it sucks to kind of have a cable box. It's not fun.
Yeah.
It's not a great experience. And in fact, the opportunity,
it's like a mutation of what like broadcast television is supposed to be.
Well, not only that, it's that the biggest problem with the cable box is that it's like when AT&T forced you to lease the phone from them. Even though any idiot can make you a phone. Any idiot, if you said, here's the standard for IPTV cable boxes, you would have, and you said, you know what, all you do is that you buy your local Comcast or Shaw or whoever may be the person that's providing the streams in your neighborhood, but you can hook in any box, and so long as you're on there, you can do it. One, the quality of the interfaces would go through the roof because there'd be competition in that space. Like it only works because it's a captive audience and they can keep sucking at it because they're your only option. And two, the prices of those boxes would be nothing overnight. They'd be $30 in an instant. And I know this because you can get DVRs for over-the-air television, if you didn't know this, now made by like generic third-party companies, and they're like literally $30 here in Canada, and you can buy them in Walmart. And I've been thinking about it. And you just hook in a thumb drive. Ta-da! And you'd have the same thing at cable in a heartbeat, and yet they fight it, and that actually then drives away subscription. It's insane.
Yeah, it's worth. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Corey.
Oh no, I would say I'd love it if me being a 32-year-old man who grew up with local television. I mean, the idea of local over-the-air TV stations becoming local again, that's a pipe dream. But I would like it if TV stations became sort of boutique, made for your city type of stations, and I mean, obviously they'd be low budget and you're not going to make a prestige drama with local TV budget. But it just reminds me of.
Well, crazy
like,
thing
how I
was
could
is
find
it'd be
something-
easier to make something
like,
decent now, at least. Like
yeah,
now
Mystery Science Theater
having
starts a local show.
Yeah. Well, no, and the joke is like now more than ever, it would be better to have like local stuff, because it used to be, it's like you're breaking the budget to shoot on a decent VHS thing. Now you could shoot it all on like GoPros and it would look better and would cost
on
less.
iPhone,
And
it would look better.
yeah, and it would be cheap to edit. Like you could, like on less budget, you could probably make really good local content. And the difference is now is, I mean, as it stood, the best local content did end up becoming things that would become nationally syndicated, like MST3K. Almost
Bill
Live
Nye.
had Bill Nye, I mean, twice over, because Almost Live, the show that he got his start on, eventually got a specialized run on Comedy Central. And then, of course, Bill Nye, coming off of that, was in a position to launch that both on PBS and then in an ad-supported version syndicated through Disney. That happened because local television worked, and there was a whole history of things leading into that in Seattle and in any city where you had these things going, where you had like local kids afternoon shows with their, their local clowns and shit like that. Like these, I mean, that's like the greatest anachronism now in The Simpsons is Krusty the Clown, because he's based off that old 1960s, 1970s, your local afternoon clown show running cartoons and, like introing and outroing your cartoons. So it's a complete thing out of time.
Yeah, just to kind of summarize this whole thing, just in case anyone listening to this isn't familiar with over-the-air technology, it's just this beautiful, simple, stripped down, back to the basics way of watching television. It is very refreshing, and it is very enlightening to sort of access content this way, even if, the options that we get in Canada are limited. And I hope it improves. I hope, if you have a television and you don't have an antenna and you think you might be able to access channels, I definitely encourage you to get your hands on an antenna and just try it out and see what you can pick up. You can actually go to a website called
especially
called
especially if you're not already paying for stuff. Yeah. Like if you don't have a cable box, this is something that you can get cheap, and then you suddenly you have that content again. So you might as well try it.
I'm going to use this to just seg into my last point. And I'm just going to go for, I've been kind of alluding to this over the last few episodes. I'm just going to go for broke on it, that I really think that we need to push for CBC to air anime in their late night schedule at this point. And when I say late night, I mean like probably 1 a.m. on a Saturday, or if we're lucky, Friday night. But I'm just gonna say this: if you are one of the many people who feel that anime should be on TV, and I think over the last few episodes that we've been talking, or since we started this show, I think we have made it abundantly clear that it is very important for anime to be on TV. People who I did not expect to advocate for it, like Lisa Patillo from Seven Seas Entertainment, who I had on a couple of months back, have very strongly advocated for anime to be back on television. It is very important for the industry, and exposure, and everything.
You can take a look at how positive it's been in the U.S. alone to have Toonami back.
Exactly.
How much that has reinvigorated the fandom, how much that has refocused the fandom in the United States.
It's just a shame no one's copying them. It seems like Cartoon Network lost Pokemon this year to Disney XD. So now Toonami is the only block on basic cable that runs anime. It's gone everywhere else.
Yeah.
That,
it's nice to have that block, but at the same time, it's kind of depressing.
There's no duplication anymore. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's weird because like anime isn't that hot thing that every network's trying right now.
Yeah.
And I think, honestly, it's now more than ever exists the variety for different networks with different demographics to try it. And further still, there can be no question that the demographics that you're looking to target, the demographics that are considered traditionally lucrative demographics, grew up now unquestionably with anime in the background of their media consumption, and therefore running that stuff in networks that you wouldn't expect with titles that would be fitting for your demo would probably be incredibly lucrative. You would be drawing in an audience that, again, otherwise probably doesn't give a fuck about linear television, but this would bring them in.
Exactly.
Come on, Logo. Run your way on ice. So what are like the top 3 shows you'd want them to air?
Okay, so just to go a step back.
Doesn't even have to be practical.
Okay, so I guess my top 3 shows that I would recommend for them would probably be Attack on Titan, because it's such a
Cool.
glaring absence from Canadian TV, or has been for quite a few years and continues to be, especially with the new season coming. My number 2 choice would probably be JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, because you can't possibly deny that JoJo's Bizarre Adventure is the exact type of show that CBC needs to be running right now. I really think that. Third, I don't know, like Inuyasha, the final act, I guess. That'd probably that'd be a smart pickup.
That's
probably
going to be like a really easy win too. Like
Yeah.
you just run that and like, oh, all these people who grew up with it are now watching CBC. Maybe getting antennas to watch CBC.
Well, yeah. Well, okay. Here's the thing. I know people probably think it's crazy that I'm recommending CBC for this, but you also have to remember that at this point, CBC is no less likely to run anime than any other network on Canadian TV right now. So you may as well just go for the station that's going to reach the highest number of people.
A branch of the CBC right now is currently the only running an anime over the air right now.
Radio Canada
this
is
happens
running.
to be Radio Canada.
Yeah.
Jeez,
Yeah, still running every morning. But I encourage you that if you want to push for more anime on Canadian TV, and if you listen to the show, you probably do, to write an actual physical letter to CBC and urge them to give it a try. I mean, I did, and they actually sent me a response. It was very nice. So, I mean, they're reading these letters. They have to, because they're accountable to the public. And if they're seeing demand, they'll consider it. I mean, when I wrote them my letter, I pointed out that CBC currently doesn't have any like fandom or genre-oriented content, which is becoming important for media companies to have. And of course, acquiring
like everybody's got to
something,
have a superhero show now.
Yeah.
Now, why not just run One Punch Man?
and they don't.
Ooh.
That would be another
Also
one. To,
getting
yeah,
this-
One Punch Man would be another good one, I guess.
Well, Attack on Titan and Inuyasha Final Act will have to to end soon.
Yeah.
So they will need replacing
Yeah.
or perpetual rerunning.
Yeah. It's
Don't even suggest it. It
Yeah.
would happen.
so I mean, CBC's not going to develop anything like that themselves, so it makes sense to acquire something that is currently missing from the market, and that's and it is an underserved market, and public broadcasters
Side question
usually
on
supposed
this.
to meet those demands.
What could they acquire that would be cool that would technically count as CanCon?
If they're running it
Black
after
Lagoon.
midnight, it doesn't matter.
I know, but just for playing games here.
All right. Well, if we want to play that game, I mean, I recommended Inuyasha. They could pick up Nana. Would probably be.
That'd be fucking sick.
Yeah. What else has had a?
Black Lagoon.
They could run Black Lagoon, maybe.
You said that's your favorite dub that they've produced.
It's a great dub. I like it. I don't know if I could see them running the new Gintama dub, which we're probably going to talk about. That's another thing.
YTV ran Death Note, but
Yeah.
Canada.
They could run Death Note again. I guess I'd prefer.
There's a movie coming.
Yeah, that's true.
Have any of the later Gundams been done up here? Or are they all LA now?
They're LA.
It is. Or LA or New York. Like, in a nutshell, I mean, CBC is widely available. You can get it over the air. It is, I think, a great venue. And of course, if they did run anime, they would gain a lot of very loyal fans who would become CBC supporters. If they weren't CBC
Maybe they'd watch
supporters
some of the
before.
other stuff on there,
Yeah, true.
They wouldn't
Anyway,
be.
I think this is an idea that is worth pursuing. I encourage people to write to them, try and get the idea out there, see if it goes anywhere. They do listen to the public probably better than any other broadcaster. So
yeah,
worth a
just tell
shot,
them
I
it's a
think.
better idea than running a show about Amish coke smugglers.
Oh yeah. Have you seen Pierre?
I've seen like a little bit of this, but yes. Oh, by the way, Corey, there's a show on our public broadcaster about Amish cocaine smugglers. It's a drama.
Hey, they're Mennonites, Carl.
What's it
called?
It's
Pure.
What's it called?
It's called Pure.
Like, pure cocaine.
Oh, Pure. I thought you said Pier. Okay, Pure.
No.
All right. Yeah. I'll have to look for that.
Anything else? I guess we can talk a little about Samurai Jack. So you guys obviously,
The trailer's dope.
yeah, trailers.
Yeah.
Fuck,
They're
man,
still
that's
running
awesome.
teasers. They've got like 3 or 4 teasers going for that thing too, that are like 30 seconds or 10 seconds. But comes out March 11th.
I'm super.
I
pumped
gotta
for that.
say, HD does that show. HD does that show a million favors. Like, it looks so much nicer with that extra crispness. Like, that really is, like, Gandhi gets a lot more out of that. Like some stuff, like, standard def, high def, whatever, when it comes to animation. But man, like what that allows them in having that flat lined, no line look and just having it have that, well, I think that alone was great to see.
I think also creatively, Adult Swim just is allowing it to be more of a labor of love than it ever could have been on Cartoon Network as well.
You don't have to kill robots all the time and Jack take damage. Like that, those two alone. You don't have to only kill robots and Jack can get like fucking stabbed in the gut. That is a big plus.
So if anybody,
and here's the other thing is like, I think at this point, it's like the audience that grew up with it, like even the youngest of that, unquestionably old enough that they would be ready to have that story take a darker turn. It's not going to be like, oh, but what about if the audience that just grew up, it's like just still basically children still watching it. It's like, it's not like trying to take it. It's not like they're trying to like flip a cartoon that one didn't have those tendencies, but two was still relatively fresh with children. Like it'd be an entirely different thing to try and like put like a Steven Universe or Adventure Time on Adult Swim tomorrow with like different standards, because you still have a bunch of kids who still watch that show. In 10 years, you could, whatever, that's different. But I'm glad to see that Jack is maybe allowing that to occur. Like this is something that they can start to think about in the future.
You're not gonna see like Ed, Edd and Eddy, but with blood and swearing.
Not that Danny Antonucci wouldn't do it.
Oh, I'm sure he would.
if you said like you get 13 episodes of like no rules, I don't think it'd be so much blood and swearing as just lots of like really, really like blue off color humor. No beating around the bushes about the porno mags anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
Just in case anyone's wondering, I have confirmed, I was in contact with the people who run the Adult Swim app. The Samurai Jack new season will be on the Canadian Adult Swim app. That's
fantastic to hear.
You might have to wait until Monday for it to show up. They're looking into that, but it is going to be on there for sure. As for broadcast, we haven't heard anything yet from Adult Swim Canada. I'm not counting on it, so just get the app.
It's one of those things where it'd be like a happy surprise. It'd be a real happy surprise if it turns up, but I mean...
see, that's the thing. Like, Adult Swim Canada has been running Samurai Jack basically as filler, because it was just easy content they could acquire from the Cartoon Network side for years. And, obviously they keep it on because it gets solid viewership, and it's helped keep that going for them. And you would think that if they were going to break the bank on any one thing, it would be the new Samurai Jack season, but they've shown no indication of that whatsoever. That entire Adult Swim Canada network is just such a write-off. It's a fucking tragedy.
It's like they're not even doing the easy. I mean, they're only doing the easiest of easy wins. Because like your next step up would be spend a little money to get this new season of Samurai Jack. Look at the other perennial favorites that aren't directly in the Adult Swim library that you could acquire the broadcast rights to. That that once you have them, you can run them forever. Acquire Cowboy Bebop, because once you have them, you will be able to cycle them for literally over a decade, perhaps longer. Like they still cycle these shows, for fuck's sake. And we're, these shows that came out in the late 90s. Yes, didn't start airing until the early O's, but that's still that's unbelievable for things, that kind of content. And so it's like, this is an obvious pickup for your thing, and they don't do that. And let alone have we gotten any of the new Venture? No.
In fact, they had season 4, but they're not airing it now. They were running through the whole series, and they did not. They went back to season 1 after season 3. So I guess they had season 4 and lost it. Also, they back in September they picked up Aqua Unit Patrol Squad 1. They only ran it twice, and then it hasn't been included in their circulation Aqua Unit number 4 since. So they what was even the point of that? That was so weird. I think we got to cut off there. So as always, thanks guys for coming on. I think we had a great chat tonight.
Yep.
All right.
Yep.
Sure.
See you soon. Thanks for tuning in to Zonan Canada. The theme song is by Ultra Klystron, which you can purchase as part of his album Packet Flood at ultraklystron.com. You can reach me through Twitter at ZonanCanada or email zonancanada@gmail.com. Please subscribe to the show on iTunes, Google Play Music, or your podcast app of choice. And as always, please recommend this show to anyone you think might be interested. Until next time, see you again.